that knock on your door, I can assure you, is not the Easter Bunny. Wow, what an eventful afternoon, folks. What an eventful week. Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Viewpoint, the Brian Heeraman podcast. This is episode number 40. Yeah, episode number 40. A milestone. Who would have thought we'd have made it this far? But we're here, we're continuing, we're pushing on, and we're at episode number 40. So, let me take this opportunity to thank all our old listeners and to welcome our new listeners, and to remind everyone that this podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms, including Google Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, and we're now available on Facebook. So, like, subscribe, share this podcast with your friends and your family. That way we can improve the listenership of this episode and all previous episodes in this podcast. So, a lot took place today, folks, and let me start off by apologizing for releasing this episode a tad bit late, but I'm sure you guys can appreciate the fact that I wanted to get what took place in today's press conference at 2 p.m. I wanted to make sure that how I would have gotten the past week headlines, what took place in the past week, and to try and incorporate it into today's press conference. So, we've had today's press conference. Let's get into it. 1 full hour of listening to gibberish and total nonsensical statements by the Honorable Prime Minister. I don't even know if we could use the word honorable anymore. It's just simply because he holds the office that we continue to call him Honorable Prime Minister. He has lost all credibility, not just because of today's press conference, but way before that. I've just reserved my comment with regards to the entirety of this whole government and this cabinet and the Prime Minister. The entirety. I just reserve my comments on that because I don't think it merits such a bold statement. But folks, I've reached the point today, after listening to the Prime Minister's, not just this press conference, but especially the one before, I've reached the point today where now I'm pretty confident in saying that it is high time that this government, that this Prime Minister, that his cabinet recognize that they have failed the citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, and it's only in the best interest of the survival of this country, of the economy, of the people, that they do the honorable thing and recognize that they can no longer govern because they have no plans for this country, for this nation, and they should tender their resignation en masse and set the course for someone else to continue. Folks, 13 months I gave up my rights. 13 months the folks gave up their rights and allowed this government to continue to have lockdowns upon lockdowns to prevent the spread of COVID-19. We have sacrificed, or we've had to hear the pains of our brothers and sisters trapped in far off countries, stateless, countryless, without the opportunity to come back, while others, because of their political affiliations and their patronage, are allowed to come back. Our family members have been stuck outside here without any assistance from this government. And 13 months after, you're coming back to tell me you're failed with your lockdown initiative. The borders remain porous and COVID-19 is running rampant in this country. And you want to go ahead and to do another lockdown? It cannot be business as normal. No, it cannot be, folks. It has gone way before that. I mean, how do you justify coming back to the folks and asking for another lockdown? For 13 months, you have said that you were locking down the borders. No entry, no one was allowed to come in and get out. But lo and behold, Venezuelans and other nationals from other countries coming through the borders. And now you come back and tell us that you want to do it all over again. If you have failed for the first 13 months to try and do it, why should you be given a next opportunity to do it again? It's for what? To come back after another 13 months? Because we don't know fully well, even though you've said it's going to end on May 23rd, how long this is going to go on for again. What is it going to be? Another 13 months? When is it going to stop? When are we going to recognize that? Or when are you going to recognize that you can't do it? is simply above and beyond what you're capable of doing. Folks, we have given up our rights for 13 months. Lo and behold, the Prime Minister will come in a press conference and say, not this press conference, but the one previous, and say to the population and say to the law-abiding citizens that the police service has the authority to enter your private property to conduct search to ensure that our safety protocols are being adhered to. This is unheard of. This Trinidad and Tobago, for all intents and purposes, it still remains a democracy and a law-abiding democracy, following and believing in a constitution. But when the Prime Minister comes out and issues such an erroneous statement, who has to be literally slapped down by the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago, stating inter alia that the Prime Minister is wrong. When you have the Prime Minister, the Minister of National Security, the Minister of Health, aided and abetted by the clown that's a Commissioner of Police, stating that how they can come into your private property and conduct searches, providing such fraudulent information in the glaring public at a press conference. Something needs to be done. Something has to be done that lets the population know that this is not acceptable. Do you think for 1 minute any international investor is going to invest money in Trinidad and Tobago knowing fully well that private property is not sacred? I mean, how does it even make rational sense to investors? At any particular point in time, the police officer could just come down into your home and say, hey, I want to conduct a search. Private property needs to be sacred, and they provide false information. They need that alone. That statement that the Prime Minister made alone is sufficient. That lie, that misinformation, that is, in my mind, that is sufficient to ask him to tender his resignation. Simple and plain as that. But we live in a country where anything goes. I mean, you have a president who is the best quarantine professional ever. You don't ever see her. She only comes out every now and again to just issue these smart or so-called smart bulletin points about the obvious. Folks, when your Prime Minister comes out on national TV and lie to you like that, you have to do a think. You have to do a double think on what's going on. You see, and this podcast is probably the only podcast where you've heard before that this entire COVID-19 pandemic is all about control. If after 13 months, the Minister of National Security, the new minister that is, well, basically he's throwing the old minister under the bus with his present statements. If after 13 months you are now telling us that how you are attempting to lock down the borders and everything you want to go and do, you buy into Cape class vessels from Australia, and those are going to assist. What about so many other diamond vessels that you've never even repaired or even touched to try and lock down the borders, but you're now waiting on these 2 new vessels to come? But what's amazing about these 2 new vessels, folks, allow me to digress, is that the Minister of National Security cannot provide a date for when these vessels are going to be here. I mean, who transact business like that? Who buys something online, if you're buying from Amazon, I don't know, and Amazon will tell you that you don't know when your package is going to arrive. You have spent millions of taxpayers' dollars and you can't tell us when these vessels are going to arrive. So we just have to wait sit down and wait and know that our money is out there. No one does business like that. But this is what we have going for governance in Trinidad and Tobago. As I mentioned, getting back to the point, this entire COVID-19 situation in Trinidad and Tobago has always been used to control. Imagine this. The Commissioner of Police, for all intents and purposes, will come out and say to the population that the special operation team will be revamped and come out bigger, better, and stronger than ever. Can you imagine that? For the Commissioner of Police to say that alone shows that how he has no class, no pride, and no shame. Because I would have thought that after what took place with that team, where they murdered 2 people in their custody, they should be going out there and trying to demolish, hide that special operations team, put that entire an entire document on a shelf and just hope that dust bury it to the point where nobody can ever see. Hang their heads in shame when it comes to that team, that special operations team, because it's an embarrassment to this country. It's an embarrassment to legal minds, law professionals, scholars all over the world to know that the police service had men in their custody and they didn't die from accident. They were murdered in a most brutal manner by law enforcement persons. But back to the whole idea of control. Ronald Reagan once said that anytime the government attempts to use or to control the minds and the people of any society, they must resort to coercion and force. And to do that, they require the arms of the state. Now, think about what's been going on in Trinidad and Tobago. Think about it. You have to remember that here is a situation where the Commissioner of Police is now coming back and saying that how SORT is going to be revamped and brought back even bigger and better. And he hires, who does he hire to revamp it? This uneducated buffoon sergeant, he's a sergeant, whatever he is, his rank is now, to run SORT. I mean, what is his qualifications to even run SORT? Just because he has political patronage with the ruling party, or he plays games with the Commissioner of Police? I mean, is it right that we have these jokes passing for police officers? Where's the respect? But more than that, where are the scholars? Where are the right thinking police officers who are standing up, or who should be standing up, who have studied their life out, who know what needs to be done for policing? Where are they? Are they going to come out and say, you know what, this is not good enough? We have to set an example. Or are they just a bunch of sheep and afraid of the Commissioner of Police to even say anything that's taking place? It's amazing. It's just simply amazing what's going on. But the linkage is the fact that this government is now using the state arms, which is the police service, and the Prime Minister's statement is that the police officers now has the powers to go into your private homes. The Commissioner of Police is then agreeing with the Prime Minister and attempting to bring fear into the minds of the population to seek some sort of particular outcome. That's what's taking place right now. That was the intent of the Prime Minister's statement and the agreement of the Commissioner of Police, is to create fear to come into your private home. This has never happened before since Germany and the Gestapo. I have spoken about the Gestapo in many previous episodes of this podcast, and that is exactly what is coming forward. When and if this Commissioner of Police attempts to use his police officers to come into the private home of citizens of this country, of law-abiding citizens of this country, when does the opposition decide to write to the OAS, the Organization of American States, to the United Nations, to the State Department of the United States, to let them know that there's a constitutional crisis about to take place in this country, whereby the state is using the arms of the state to terrorize people? Because that's exactly what they're doing. When are they going to start to inform the local ambassadors of first world countries? And I'm pretty sure that they are looking on and seeing what's going on with regards to the Prime Minister's statement, and they're reporting back to their own state departments at home that something is amiss in Trinidad and Tobago. Not everything is right. Things are not hunky-dory here. Folks, when they attempt to do that, to come to your home, I can guarantee to you there's going to be a constitutional crisis, because the Prime Ministers have one opinion, the law associations have next opinion, and God knows what's going to happen when they attempt it. You see that person that they call Alexander, that man who they've placed, he is a robot for SORT. He's a robot for the Commissioner of Police, and he's going to carry out the instructions just like the previous one, Mark Hernandez. I am pretty sure instructions were given to that previous leader to do what was necessary to capture the killers of Andrea Barrett. It only now happens that they decided to throw Mark Hernandez under the bus. It will soon come to light. But the fact remains that the attempt to utilize the long arm of a state to terrorize the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, it's going to lead to significant problems. It's going to lead to a constitutional crisis and an erosion of the trust that the people have with regards to the state, the police officers, and all other arms of the state. Can you imagine that the previous leader of SORT, Mark Hernandez, it is alleged that how, and I say alleged, I give it to Ian Allen, I've heard that how he has his son, 19 years old, as a member of SORT. How in God's name does he become a member of SORT? And if it is that he's a member of SORT, I hear the Commissioner of Police saying that how you need to undergo specialized training. 19 years old and you pass specialized training to become part of SORT. Similar training, he said, as per CID. So nobody else in the police service wants to become a member of SORT. And what are the salaries and the allowances that are being paid to these SORT officers? Is it anything special or better than the normal police officers? Now, you, Commissioner of Police, said being paid the same, just additional allowances. Tell the population, tell your own police officers, your own membership, your own subordinates, what these allowances are. 19 years old, and Mark Hernandez apparently had his son as a member of SORT. I don't know, was it ever advertised? How do you just do these things? But these are the people who they want to enforce laws in this land. That's what they want. Folks, I started off this podcast by saying that knock on your door is not the Easter Bunny. But let me tell you what it's going to be. When they come to your home, that knock on the door is going to be the Trinidad and Tobago version to the Gestapo. Coming to your home to find out about your personal business and what you are doing and how is it impacting and making the government look bad. That's what it's boiled down to in this country right now. Far-fetched, so far everything that I've said on this podcast, as far-fetched as just made sound, has come to part. It is high time that the population, that the folks out there, that we the people call for the resignation of this government. They have failed us. They have come back 13 months down the road and say, you know what, let's start over with this entire lockdown situation. It's not by guess. It's not by guess. Their tactic is fear equals power. That's what the tactic is all about. Can you imagine the Prime Minister in his press conference today telling businesses that forget about the dollar? I mean, really? Forget about the dollar? Businesses, I've said it in this podcast on many different times. Businesses are not in it for the Ministry of Social Development. They're in it to make a profit. If you close down their businesses by force, they are not going into their personal accounts to pay their employees. That's not how it works. It's never worked like that before. And even if they do it for the first week, you don't think that they will not be able to do it for going forward. They're in it to make money. Everybody's in it to make money. But I want to digress for a minute here. This whole issue about shutting down all food outlets. I was having a conversation with someone during the course of today and even yesterday, because I believe that part of what motivated this Prime Minister to come out for this 1 hour long press conference to talk a bunch of crap is just because his friends in Prestige Holding believe that Royal Castle had one up on Prestige Holding with regards to how they operated. Apparently, Royal Castle had a bunch of mobile units that they were continuing to sell because the Prime Minister did say that mobile stations could continue to operate as food outlets. Royal Castle was leading the charge on that. If they were allowed to continue the way they were, for 23 days, Royal Castle would have led the market with regards to their cart outlet. KFC would have seen significant switching because if you buy Royal Castle or you focus on Royal Castle for the next 23 days as your, primary instead of KFC, because KFC is no longer operational because their food trucks were now coming on stream. They were one step behind Royal Castle. Well done, Royal Castle. Well done. I mean, I must give you props for that. But if it is that KFC was so far behind, then it's clearly a situation whereby after the end of this 23 days, most people won't go back to KFC. They would have become accustomed to the whole planet of how Royal Castle have operated. I think that was part of the motivation for shutting down all food outlets today. He very well wanted to keep the normal roadside vendors operational, but when he recognized, or when his friends recognized that Royal Castle had one up on them, they came back with a vengeance to shut down Royal Castle. And so doing, and the only way that they could have shut down Royal Castle was to shut down everyone. Everyone else was collateral damage just because they wanted to get back at the Royal Castle. A far-fetched idea, folks. Look at who the Prime Minister friends is. Look at who this whole roadmap, this whole thing when you do this report on the port. Who was it? Christian Muti, my friends. Prestige holding. Folks, we can't continue like this, We just cannot continue like this. If we were to continue in our operation whereby this government continues to run this country in this manner, there will be nothing left, sorry. When those borders open back, there's going to be the largest brain drain this country has ever experienced. You think business people, are going to keep their children in this country if there are no jobs, if there's no future for them? The only reason why they haven't flown them out now is because the borders are closed. The only reason why people who can't get jobs right now are still in this country is because the borders are closed. I shouldn't say God forbid, but when those borders do open back, watch, I guarantee you that there's going to be a brain drain. People are going to leave this country in droves. As far as they're concerned, there's nothing else left here because this style of governance, this style whereby you're picking winners and losers in the business industry, and it's not just you're picking winners and losers, it's the state picking the winners and losers, not the market. The state picking the winners and losers. It can't continue like that. Market forces are not doing it. State is doing it. This is now becoming more and more of a control economy. A control economy by the government. It makes no sense. But you have to ask yourself, and I think I mentioned this in my last episode, why is the Prime Minister going down this road for? You see, my friends, there's an old saying that go, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. This Prime Minister, friends, Nicolas Maduro, Maxine Waters, far left people who left this ideology, you want nothing to do with in a democracy. But those are this Prime Minister's friends. The former leader of Guyana, Granger, dictators. And if it's not dictators, it's leftist ideology. And those are your Prime Minister friends. Those are the ones that he's, figuratively in bed with. I don't know, folks. I don't know what next. I don't know. But that's my take on what took place between the week that went by and this present press conference. All this talk about how the capacity of the beds in the hospital is going to be exceeded. Really, you expect us to believe that now? All of a sudden, that is. You see, folks. There's something called crisis management, but this government only believes in crisis. There's no management. They just love the crisis. You see, the crisis takes away from the main issue. And the main issue, as I've always said, I've always maintained in this podcast, is the economy. So let's look at the economy then. If the main issue is the economy, let's look at the economy. First of all, how about some good news? Because we need some good news going forward. I see NGC and Heeraman have reached an interim agreement for natural gas supply. And this agreement will allow the methanol plants and point users for Heeraman to continue operations, the M5000 and I believe it was the M4, to continue operation. That's good. That's great news for our Trinidad and Tobago economy because we need those foreign currency. We need that to continue to come into our coffers because as you all know, foreign currency is like gold in Trinidad and Tobago. You just can't get it. Even if you have it in the bank, in your own bank account, you can't enough on the foreign currency. You heard me complain about it on numerous occasions. But nonetheless, this whole deal with NGC and Heeraman is good news for the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. It would allow us some level of flexibility going forward. But that's where the good news ends, folks. That's where it ends. There's nothing else. Because when you continue to look at the economy, you see RBC is now basically trying their best to get out of Trinidad and Tobago from all appearances. That's what they look at. That's what they're trying to do. Everything that they do is that They shut down a branch here, they shut down a branch there, and there's no stopping them. And they're not the only ones that's doing that. You see, when you shut down the economy, the way this prime minister shut it down today with regards to all retail outlets, all food supply, all food outlets. I mean, the majority of people that you're going to be affecting is the poor people, the people who the single parents, the people who can't do any. They will have no income for the next 23 days, all because you fraudulently manage the entire COVID-19 pandemic. They now have to pay in the price for your inefficiency. But nobody's saying that. You see, I've gotten to the point where I'm tired of hearing people sit down in their air-conditioned office, their comfy chairs and their permanent jobs and attempt to lecture to the rest of us about how they should live their lives. Folks, let me just say, when you trying to tell, or when some of people out there trying to tell others about wearing your mask and social distancing, at the end of the day, some people just simply trying to make $1 to feed their families. You can take a picture and put it up on Facebook or YouTube or wherever and say that people not following the regulation, and that's what's leading to what's taking place with regards right now to COVID-19 increasing in numbers. But I want to let you know that one particular picture that you see, that's just a snapshot at that particular point in time, and is not a reflection of the entire reality of the country. Because I've been around, I've been moving around, and I can tell you for a fact that the majority of people that I see, they are wearing their mask. Don't come and tell me that you take one picture somewhere and people not wearing their mask. Pass me with that rubbish, as Philip Alexander would have said. Because I don't believe that's the situation. I think people are doing what they need to do. But the cases of COVID-19, I mean, this Brazilian strain or whatever, where did that really come from? Where did that really come from, the borders of lockdown? If you have managed COVID-19 so well in 2020, and all of a sudden it's rearing its head, then what's going on? What's going on? You see, folks, it's never been about managing COVID-19, and I'm getting tired of saying that. I think I'm going to start doing some podcasts now without even mentioning COVID-19. But that's what it is. You cannot continue to shut down the economy every time there's a spike in COVID-19. The only solution to this COVID-19 problem, and you would have heard me mention it on this podcast, and probably before anybody else would have mentioned it, is vaccines. You have to vaccinate the population and get to 80%. Because even if you think that you could shut down now and try and control it, then you shut down as much as you want and have zero infections taking place in Trinidad and Tobago, then this economy would still never open back unless you have vaccines. Vaccination is the only way to move this economy forward. But they don't seem concerned about that. This Prime Minister spoke today about all sorts of different things, about numbers and all sorts of things, and he has not once mentioned what is the plan going forward to ensure the economy is continuing to click. What is the plan to stimulate jobs? Ask yourself this question, folks. What was the last minor, microscopic investment from outside that has taken place in Trinidad and Tobago over the last 6 years? There has been none. No investment. Because you know why? As a matter of fact, businesses are selling out. You see Scotiabank selling, RBC selling out. They're getting out, not just from Trinidad, but parts of the Caribbean as well. Because something is taking place out there. Something is going on out there, and the Caribbean is not on the front burner anymore. Saving themselves for Guyana, of course, because they have found out. But something is taking place out there, and we are no longer the tigers of the Caribbean. We're not even the pussycats of the Caribbean anymore. But folks, this is a reality that we are living with right now. And unless there's some sort of change, I mean, how could you inspire confidence in national security when you have somebody like Fitzgerald Hines as your star Minister of National Security, a man who has made so many and continues to make so many racist statements, and he would not be sanctioned by his Prime Minister. It's amazing. But I think for some reason I believe some parts of the population is awakening to what's taking place. They begin to realize that how this whole COVID-19 is just for the ones on top to continue to manage in that particular way. It's not for the masses. It's not for the masses. I want people to know out there that the mass or the significant members who have lost their jobs and the government is refusing to give them any assistance whatsoever. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen after this 23 days, if it's going to be extended, but I know one thing for sure, folks. This economy may not rebound. And if it does rebound, it's going to take a long time to rebound, and it's not going to rebound under this present government, this present cabinet. They have no plans for what's taking place in this country. None whatsoever. We have to face that fact. We have to face that reality and start putting things in place. Okay, I've rambled long enough. I've been going on for quite some time now. Like I said, this is episode 40 Viewpoint, the Brian Heeraman podcast. We reach a milestone in this podcast. I want to continue to invite you all to listen and to share this podcast, as I've mentioned before, because we're going places with this podcast first. Soon enough, we're going to be doing some interviews. I've promised interviews before, but with this whole COVID-19, some of the folks who I really want to interview, we'll see how it goes. But we're going to be doing interviews very soon, folks. So stay tuned with us. And thanks for listening, and stay tuned for episode number 41.